thewellnesscouch.com, streaming wellness into your lives. Download the app today.
This is Up for a Chat with your hosts, Cyndi O'Meara and Kim Morrison.
Here we are, up for a chat about the hottest topics that are important to you, inspiring you to awaken the change within. I'm Cyndi O'Meara, and Kim Morrison is not with me today. So I'm interviewing a wonderful lady that her topic is close to my heart, and that is Jenny Brockis. And she has written a book called The Natural Advantage, and it's all about being out in nature and what it does to the human body and all the science. This is what I'm so excited about, because I know what nature does for me, Jenny, but to know that you've got the science behind you and that wonderful book. So let's get started. First of all, I want to know, why have you become such a nature enthusiast? How did you start this whole thing? And were you the opposite before and you've just gone that way? Or
I think I grew up in the UK. And I grew up in the south of the country. We were on some natural rolling hills called the North Downs. And so I was brought up in a semi-rural environment where every Sunday my dad took myself and my brothers out for a long walk and taught us all the names of all the trees and all the plants. And it was something I just took for granted because we went and I did. And I just thought everybody did things like that. And it wasn't until much later on in my life when, I migrated to Australia, I'd set up practice as a GP, I'd become somewhat disenchanted with the traditional way of approaching health, and was really fascinated by what we could be doing differently to enhance our own well-being. And it dawned on me that every time I felt a bit down or needed to clear my head or felt a bit, I would go outside and I'd go for a walk, or I'd just go and sit in the garden, or I'd go and do something, but it was always, always outside. And I wondered why. What was it that led me to do that? And why did it give me so much relief? And so my curiosity got the better of me and I started to dive into the research. Now, 10, 15 years ago, the amount of research into the health and well-being benefits of being outside was minimal. And now we are seeing hundreds of papers being produced every year because it's as if a light bulb has gone off. All of a sudden, we've realized, hey, there's something to this. And it's not just the feel-good factor. Spending more time outside changes our physiology and our psychology for the better. So, we're so clever with all our medicines and medications and therapies. We sometimes overlook that it's often the simplest of activities that can make the biggest difference. And the research is very clear. If we could spend even 5 to 10 minutes outside in a green or a blue space every single day, we would induce positive and profound benefits in our own bodies. And that just blows me away because I think it's too simple, but it's not. We've just got to consciously set the intention, because the other thing is, and I don't know if you've noticed this, that we're all so busy, we're all so tied up with everything that's going on in our lives. We're running here and there, and we are often just indoors. We're not gravitating to the outdoors as much. We have the thought, oh, that would be nice, but we prioritize other things rather than thinking, actually, I really need to do this for me, for my health, and for my family's health as well. So that's a rather long, shaggy dog story about why I have become so passionate about this. And now, as I'm a lifestyle medicine physician, which means I've just taken specialist training in the understanding of what we can do for ourselves to boost health and well-being. And we talk about the need for better nutrition, which I think is probably very close to your heart, exercise, better sleep, better stress management, socializing. And I think nature, or connecting with nature, underpins all of this.
I agree with you entirely. When I was a 19-year-old, I went to America and went to the University of Colorado in Boulder, and I joined a hiking club, and we would go out for 10 days into the mountains of Colorado, and I became addicted. It was like this incredible addiction. I had to be out into the mountains and had to be doing things, and I've done that ever since without understanding, of course, the science behind it, but understanding that addiction. But one of the things that I also did was I did anthropology. And I realized that we were an evolutionary species and that we were living in a modern world that was not working for our evolutionary body. So I woke up, not knowing the science, but I woke up saying, hey, we have to pretend how we lived as hunter-gatherers, but live in a modern world. And it sounds like you've written the book on it. And
yes.
Yeah, basically you've written that book about we have to connect back into what we evolved to live by, which was sun up, sun down, moon up. You know, all of those things were just so important, and we've forgotten it. We've absolutely forgotten it.
Yes.
So you said something in the very beginning of that whole thing, and I want to start there. Disenchanted with what you were doing. You said you were disenchanted. What caused that disenchantment? Because I have so many friends that are in medicine, some, or quite a few of them in emergency medicine. They're not disenchanted, except they're sick of looking after the chronically ill. They like the emergency medicine, which is, you know, if there's an accident, like they get all thrilled about it, like they're hilarious. But I'm noticing the GPs are the ones that are disenchanted. Could you tell me what happened to you?
I think, don't get me wrong, I love medicine. I love being a doctor and a physician. It's such a privileged position to be in and to have, you know, some understanding of what keeps us well. But I think it was, for me, realizing that so much of the illness that I saw presenting was entirely preventable. And we have this global burden of chronic disease, which is getting worse. And yet all the statistics tell us that the vast majority of this is entirely unnecessary and preventable. If only we would look at, examine, and maybe change some of our own behaviors in how we choose to live our lives. And for me, the frustration just grew from there. I just thought, I'm just sticking on Band-Aids. I can understand the emergency medicine stuff because, yes, you've got an emergency. It's life or death. You've got to fix something now. But when you see the same people coming back time after time after time, and you think, you know, you've shared the information and the knowledge and and encourage them to make the change, but often, and it's not their fault, but they don't always make the changes. And so the chronic disease gets worse and they get sicker and they have less, what's the right word? Well, they're less healthy overall.
Less quality of lives. Yeah.
It's poorer quality of life.
Yeah.
I just think, you know, we've only got a short time on this planet. Mm-hmm. So for me, it's about empowering other people with health coaching to support them in their own choices, because we're not all the same. And, you know, particularly when it comes to choosing what we eat or how we exercise, I get a bit frustrated too by, you know, certain gurus who say, well, you must do it this way and you must do it that way. And I'm thinking, no, you've got to do it your way, in the way that best reflects what is going to support you in the optimal way. So I don't say eat this or don't eat that, or do this exercise or don't do that exercise. Work with your body. But with lifestyle, we aim to support people in their choices and guide them towards achieving those goals.
All right. So I am one of your clients that have just come into you. And I have, I'm in a pre-diabetic state. My blood pressure is up. I'm overweight. I'm tired. I can't sleep. That's a good start. And
Yeah.
I want you to fix me with a pill.
Yeah, of course you do. Wouldn't that be great?
I'm open to suggestion. I'm one of those ones that go, well, you just fix me, but I'm open to suggestion. So what are your suggestions to somebody, which is the normal human being on planet Australia at the moment, they're pre-diabetic, their blood pressure's high, they're tired, exhausted, they don't sleep, and so I'm the run-of-the-mill human, and I'm overweight, and so I'm the run-of-the-mill human. So I always remember this statistic. Even though you give somebody that you're going to die if you don't change, only 1 in 10 will change. So I want to hear from you. Like, all right, I want you to just give me a pill. How are you going to help me? Or should I help myself? No.
I'd be keen to find out sort of what's brought them in to me right now. Has there been something that has just made them think, oh, I'm sick of this. I want to be better. I want things to be different. I would want to know and have a greater understanding of where they are right now, what's brought them to this place, and what they think has contributed to it. And then to say, well, yeah, there are a few things to work out here, and they can be worked on. It's not going to happen overnight. And yes, you could take medication for your blood pressure, or if it was necessary for your diabetes or whatever. But that is not necessarily going to make you a healthy person. And I think I would want to know how strong their desire was to work with somebody like myself to get the outcomes they want, but on the understanding it's going to be a journey, and it's going to take time, and it's going to take commitment, and there's going to be a few setbacks because that's normal. But in the longer term, they are essentially going to be future proofing, if that's the right term, their health. So, yes, we know that telling people what to do doesn't work. I know if somebody tells me what to do, I sometimes am quite polite in telling them what my response is, not always, but I think it's the same. In human nature, we don't like being told what to do. I'm always worried about those people that do, because I think, sometimes they'll take it to the nth degree rather than thinking it through themselves. So I would be asking, what worries them the most at this point in time? Is it the fact that somebody's told them they've got pre-diabetes? Is it the fact that they've got high blood pressure? Is it the time that they're carrying too much weight? I would want to know more about who they are, where they've come from, what they've done before, what have they tried? Because I think one of the things that, give me the pill and just fix it, is because we fear failure. And often people have tried. I've been told I'm overweight. I've been on this diet. I've been on that. And I did an exercise program and I hurt myself and da-da-da-da-da. It didn't work. And now I'm feeling worse than ever. I think it's important to get across that it's a slow process, because we don't become unwell to that state overnight. It's taken time to evolve to that state, and it's going to take time to unpack it all. And I think the first thing is to decide, well, what's the most worrying thing that they are prepared to deal with initially? What have they tried so far? What has worked a bit? What hasn't worked? What they are willing to try, and to sort of discuss with them that, and then to work out a plan moving forward to say, look, I'm going to be with you on this. Join me and let's achieve this, because this is about you and what you need, not me just giving you a pill. If you only want a pill, I'm probably not the right person to work with.
So no doubt that when somebody comes in that's like that, and another person comes in that's similar, you're going to tell them the same thing of the fundamentals and the pillars.
It is the fundamentals.
Yeah, let's talk about the fundamentals. What is it that you would say, okay, I'm willing to change, you're willing to change. What are the fundamentals that everybody has to do? That's what I would love to know.
I think we all have to eat, move, and sleep.
Okay.
So I think rather than worrying about being overweight, I would want to understand more about what the individual is eating currently, what they like to eat, what their personal preferences or their cultural preferences are. As far as exercise goes, exercise means different things to different people. So again, I would want to know, well, what does exercise look like in your life? What do you engage in? Are you somebody who goes to the gym? Are you somebody where, getting to the post box each day is a bit of a struggle? What type of things do you like when it comes to exercise? Are you somebody that relishes getting outside and doing something, or are you somebody that likes to watch it on television? It's that sort of thing. And the sleep, I think sleep underpins so much of our health. And if somebody is sleeping poorly, I want to understand why. Is it because, well, if it's a woman, depending on her age, is she going through the change? Is she experiencing a lot of stress in her life? Has she got a lot of worry, economic concerns, whatever? And to say, well, and to start sort of introducing the concept that fixing one part of how we eat, move, and sleep actually helps to fix the others. For example, if we can improve somebody's sleep pattern, they are actually likely to not only feel better and be in a better mood, but they are also going to find it easier to manage their weight and keep it in the healthier zone because of the influences that sleep has on all our hormones and et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. So I think it's about helping people to understand that we are a whole body, and to move away from the fragmented approach. I think sometimes we've specialized too small. You can go to an orthopedic specialist who only deals with shoulders or only does knees, rather than looking at the big picture and saying, well, okay, let's look at you and look at how you walk and all this sort of stuff. So I think we need to go back to saying, look, if you've got a multitude of different things going on, they're all working synergistically to create this state of poor health. So we need to start unpacking over here, which is then going to start unpacking problems over there. And yeah, so that's probably what I would do.
Yeah, it's interesting because I read a book, I don't know when it came out, but when it first came out, it was Charles Duhigg's book, The Power of Habit.
The Power of Habit, yes.
Yeah,
yes.
The Power of Habit. And he talks about a keystone habit that then becomes the beginning of you changing everything. And that's what you're speaking about. You're speaking about that, and I'm going to call it, because that's what I've always remembered it as, is that keystone habit that will then, like sleep, that will get them all excited about making, those changes.
Yeah.
So we've looked at eat, move, and sleep, but let's look at the natural advantage now. Let's look at, when do you tell them, get outside, see the sun? When does that happen? Or do you just hand them the book and go, read this, do it, and you'll be fine?
Yeah, that's right. I think it's about understanding our own relationship with nature, because I love nature. I'm drawn to nature. My day is so much better when I know I can get outside first thing in the morning with my cup of tea and just look at the world around me. But not everybody feels like that. For some people, it's like, ooh, dirty mud, creatures, bitey things. So we've got a different relationship with nature. But I think regardless of that, the benefits are profound in terms of our immune system, our cardiovascular system, our ability to think, and our mood. So just for starters. So I think understanding that, in relation to sleep, one of the simplest things we can do is to work with our circadian rhythm and to get outside into the early morning light for a few minutes. I know half of us are rushing around with small children, and they're saying, where are my socks? Where's my sports uniform? And all that sort of stuff. But if you have 2 minutes to yourself just to be outside or look outside even, because that works too, and just appreciate what you've got around you. Hopefully it's something nice and green or blue to look at and not just a pile of concrete from next door. That helps to set you up for a better night's sleep, because it sets your circadian rhythm to say, right, in 16 hours' time, you will have a much stronger drive to go to sleep. Because sleep is all about patterns and behaviors. The trouble is we have chosen often to override our natural rhythms. So we go to bed late. Sometimes we get up too early, but that's often not to gain the benefit of nature, but to work and do other things. So I think we can utilize nature in short bursts. In my book, I relate to a model that was put out by some American people some time ago now, but they say, we basically need exposure to and connection with nature every single day for a total of maybe 15 to 20 minutes, ideally. So if you can't get 15 to 20 minutes in one hit, do it in a shorter burst. So that's why getting up in the morning, if you can, and being outside is an easy way to get going. Or instead of driving all the way to work, just parking a little bit away and just walking the last bit, especially if it goes past a green space. It's about getting out at lunchtime, making sure you do actually stop for lunch to have something to eat.
Yeah,
and then to say, well, if the most of my front of the day is too busy, what can I do in the afternoon or the evening to get myself out? There's the study from University of Exeter was very clear when it comes to mental well-being. And this is one of my chief drivers, if you like, for why nature is so important. We've got so much anxiety, so much depression, so much burnout in our societies. And yet it's been shown that if we can spend a minimum of 120 minutes a week outside, we can significantly reduce that risk by up to 40%. Now, I don't know many medications that can achieve that outcome. So, 120 minutes, that's 2 hours a week. And you can often combine that with your exercise. For me, my exercise is outside. Like you, I love walking, hiking. I can't always hike in Boulder, Colorado. I'd love to. We do have local parks, and we do have a local bit of bushland, which is beautiful and safe, and it's just a joy to go to. And then it's about the connection with nature rather than just being in nature. What was really interesting was one study I read about, which showed that people sort of get that, being in a green space is good for you. So they go out, they maybe go for a jog, but they put these white things in their ears and they're listening to music or a podcast, or they're using their phone and making a call. And it's
okay for them to listen to this podcast, just letting people know.
Yeah. This podcast absolutely fine.
Sorry, I didn't mean to interrupt you.
This podcast aside, it's been shown you don't get the same depth of connection. So it's interesting how our modern technology interferes with our ability to really engage with nature and connect more deeply. So my suggestion is take out those earbuds, switch the phone to silent or leave it behind, shock horror, and go outside to immerse yourself fully with all your senses, where you're looking, you're hearing, you're smelling, you might be tasting. So, and the more you practice doing that, the more you improve. And I mean, I spend too much time, I know, sitting on my bottom in front of a computer screen. I wish I didn't, but I do. That's just part of my work, even though I stand up for a lot of the time. So I think it's just really important to remember that getting outside is a counterbalance to too much screen time, where we are focusing, hyper-focused on a small space. And it gives us eye strain or Zoom fatigue or whatever you like to call it. So getting outside and really noticing what's above, below, to the side, behind, broadens your perspective. And that's very calming to our brain. but it also helps us to broaden our overall perspective of what's going on around us rather than being tunnel visioned. Does that make sense?
Yeah, most definitely.
So when I see more, we then get better at hearing more. And this was highlighted to me. We were in the South Island of New Zealand, and my cousin and his wife had come over to stay with us for a little short holiday, which was beautiful. And we went on one of the great short walks. It's called the Rob Roy Glacier Track. It's absolutely stunning. You walk up through these beech trees along a roaring river, and then you get to this platform where there's a glacier in front of you. It was just, amazing. But what was really interesting on that walk was every so often, quite frequently, my cousin's wife would stop. She'd pull out her binoculars and she'd start scanning the bushes. I thought, what's she doing? Well, she's an avid bird watcher. And she could hear the bird song and she wanted to identify what bird was singing. And I thought, I have walked this track many times and I've never heard the bird song or listened out for it. That was the difference. It was there, but I hadn't heard it. And I thought, oh, Jenny, you can do better than this. And ever since then, I've deliberately, when I'm outside, always attempted to listen more. And that makes us a better listener when we're interacting with people.
That's amazing. Yeah. There's a lady by the name of Gina Chick who's just put out her book. I don't remember the name of the book, but I remember what it's about. Yeah. And she won Alone in Australia, in Tasmania. And
yes, Gina. Yes, fabulous Gina. Yes.
Yeah, she's amazing. Anyway, in this, I listened to one of her podcasts and she was out in nature with these podcasters that were podcasting with her and the birds were singing. And she started to mimic what the birds were doing, saying what they were actually saying to us. So if there was a danger, a snake or something like that, they would do like, she would say what it did. And then she would say the next bird thing. And if it's just going cooey, cooey, it's happy, everything's good, life's great. But if it's like, like she was amazing. I'm listening to her going, I've never thought of that, but now I do. And now that you've said that, sometimes you do. You walk out in nature, and if you've got those things in your ears, you're never going to learn about what nature's all about, And where the crawdads sing is another really good example of someone who spends their time in nature. So we've got these examples of incredible people doing this and listening, and we have to start getting out there, like you were saying. And first of all, look, then you can hear more. And then the tasting's my favorite part. I'm a mad forager. And somebody says to me, do you know what that is, Cyndi? Do you know that it's not going to be poisonous? So I did eat something one time that affects your heart. And that was the day I went, I will never put anything in my mouth until I actually know, and I know it's safe. So.
Yes.
So you're right. And and it's so funny because I can forage and people can be behind me and just go, why are you eating that? And I'm like going, well, I think it's better than the grocery store fruit. These are berries usually. So
yes. And there's something very special about, and this relates to growing our own fruit and vegetables. There's something we feel very clever or rewarded when we can go out into the garden and pick, a cherry tomato off the vine and look at it in all its beautiful colour. And we've got a bit of a heat wave going on at the moment. I don't know if you have where you are, but I picked one yesterday and it was hot. Oh, I've got a hot tomato. But it was incredible. And it always tastes better than the store-bought stuff. There's no doubt about it. And if you have people around for supper and you've cooked something, we do like that little sort of proud moment. Oh, and I picked all the herbs from my own garden, or these are my own vegetables, or whatever. There is a sense of pride in that. And I think we can tap into that, especially if we're not used to doing everything, because it's very easy just to go down to the supermarket, load up the trolley, and and then carry on from that. But I think I'm very keen to sort of help improve people's connection with nature, but I think that also leads to a better connection with the food that we choose to eat. So the fact that you forage, you have learned, which foods are available, where to look for them, how to harvest them, how to cook them, etc., or prepare them, whatever. I think it's a very important skill that can easily be relearned or regained if we have the interest and benefit from it.
Because you can't, there'd be no chemical spread as long as you're not on a roadside. Like if you're out in the forest often, it's fine. But you know how you said about the tomato with the sunshine on it and how hot it was? So we have raspberries. I have wild raspberries on my place. And when the sun is on them and you pick it, it is the sweetest, most incredible taste as opposed to the one that's been in the shade. So the sun must do something to it. I don't. As soon as you said the tomato, I went, well, I know about raspberries. It's a very different taste because these raspberries usually come out in the winter. So I don't know, because I live in Queensland. So they're wild. They're not. We don't plant them. They're just on my place and we never, ever try and get rid of them. I have blackberries. I have raspberries. I've got everything you could possibly. I've got the little aniseed balls. I can't remember their name. And I've just got so many good berries. And that's taught me to forage as well and to understand, what is available to us. And you're right. You start eating those. You don't know the nutrient value of those, but they taste incredibly well. And I think maybe that might give us a bit of an idea on that value.
Yeah, absolutely. And, we live in a world where the messages about ultra-processed foods and how bad they are for us is getting out there. I think most people know that. Is it changing people's eating behaviours? No. So I think we need to look at a smarter way of trying to get people more involved with their food choices. And I know cost is always, the factor that comes up. It's too expensive. Well, okay. I could disagree with that one, but I think it's another conversation we could have.
I'm happy to have that conversation because I hear it all the time too. And I go, what's more expensive? You being sick for 15 years with you can't work, you can't do this, you can't do that, or preventing you being sick for that 15 years and being well for the next 15 years. So I'm with you. I agree. I think it's a false notion that people have.
Yeah, exactly right. Unfortunately, the marketers of the ultra-processed foods, especially the fast foods as they're called, have got it nailed. And, over the last few decades, we've just got so used to it. It's always there. It's always available 24/7. You can supersize it or whatever. And if you're hungry and you're driving past, it's just so tempting because it's there and you can eat immediately and you'll be rewarded by all that hot fat and salt and sugar and such and get that. But the rational side of us is needed to say, well, how can I get better at making healthier choices more often? And obviously, if you've got a backyard full of luscious berries, and I'm coming over to your gardens, I think if we can start teaching our children better about what are healthy foods to eat, I think there's a lot of talk about picky eaters, and yes, there are fussy eaters too with children. But I think as a society, we have moved too far away from encouraging the children to be engaged in the preparation of food, serving of food, and the eating of food. And I was fascinated when I was reading about what the Japanese culture is around school children and school lunches. Now, I don't know if you were brought up where your school provided a school lunch. I was brought up in the UK and we had school lunches, which were vile. Vats of grey boiled mince and sort of sloppy potato. And that was the only vegetable you'd probably get. So those were my memories of school dinners. But in Japan, they actually put legislation in place back in the 50s to say that the school lunch program would ensure that children were taught about how to set up for lunch, prepare the food for lunch, and eat the lunch in a lunch eating space. So almost like a mindful type of eating. And
it's real food.
And it's real food.
It has to be real food, I read. Yeah.
Yes, there's no packaging, no stuff. It's all real food. And I thought, wow, if you can, instill that in children from word go in the school years, you're setting them up to be much healthier adults because they've already got that knowledge and understanding of what a healthy diet looks like and tastes like. And it's not to say that they will never eat fast food. Of course they will. I mean, we're human. We sometimes like to indulge ourselves in foods that aren't always so healthy for us. But I think it will give us a much better starting point. And with all the research that's out there showing that our choice of food, I'm talking to you know all this stuff about how it affects your microbiome and affects your food choices. I mean, I always like to sort of share, we go to the supermarket to buy food and think that we're making the decision. No, it's our gut making the decision for us. So, but we know.
I think that's an important point.
Yeah.
I really do. People think that they're making it, but it's the microbiome trying to survive. And if it's a microbiome, as you said, that's not working well for you, it's going to want white food. And a lot of people talk about picky eaters, and it's not them that the picky eaters, it's those bugs that want that white food.
Exactly right. Yeah. Exactly right. Yes. Yes.
And I don't think enough people realize that is the case. I was speaking with someone recently who said, the daughter will only eat this much. And I said, well, the way to stop it is to stop giving the food to the daughter and starve her. I'm sorry, but within 2-3 days, she won't die. And then you offer her something different. Then you change the environment and the microbiome. And
yes,
I think this is an important point to let people know about. I don't know if we talked about it in this podcast.
I think it's vital to sort of try and get the message out there that, we think we make rational decisions, maybe not so much. And the other thing that I think was groundbreaking research, which came out of Deakin University, was the work by Felice Jacka from the Mood and Food Institute, who you're probably familiar with. And her initial pilot study that looked at, does the choice of food we eat influence our mood? And she found, or she enrolled a small group, I mean, kudos to her and her team, of people who'd been diagnosed with moderate to severe depression, who were often on medication. They were seeing a psychologist or a psychiatrist. They were unwell, and they had a dietary history taken. And then the one variable that was changed in the active group was they were put on what she called a modified Mediterranean style of diet. So essentially fresh fruit and vegetables, unprocessed, lean meats, a little bit of dairy. That was the modification because Australians like their dairy. And over a period of 12 weeks, they were blown away by the results, because the impact on people's mood subjectively was that in some instances they were deemed to no longer be clinically depressed. Some of them were able to come down or reduce their medication. Some people came off their medication. And that was in 12 weeks of modifying somebody's diet. I mean, okay, their diet wasn't very good to start with, and then they went to a much more supportive diet. But I think the impact of that was it woke everybody up to the fact that we truly are and feel as a result of what we choose to put in our bodies. So from there, that spawned a whole new speciality. We now have nutritional psychiatrists who work with people who are dealing with mental health issues, and they're addressing that, maybe not wholly, but certainly in conjunction with addressing the choice of foods that they're including into their diet, which is extraordinary. I never imagined in my lifetime or when I first started medicine that I would ever hear of nutritional psychiatry. And we see it in many other specialities as well, because it's the realization that, you know, whether you're in oncology or an orthopedic surgeon or pediatrician, the recovery and health of our patients very much depends on their environment, the lifestyle choices they make, to a far greater extent than the medication they may receive. And I think the one that was a bit sort of, oh, really, statistic for me was the understanding that of all the health outcomes, medical intervention in the form of medication only accounts for 20% of somebody's recovery. And I thought, oh, really? Can't make it a bit more? But
make it easy. Let's just pop a pill.
But it really highlighted to me the fact that, yes, we have some amazing life-saving medications we don't want to do without, but there is so much more to health. And I think this is where lifestyle choices, good nutrition, the right kind of exercise, the right type of sleep, restful sleep, and better stress management and understanding ourselves more is just so powerful.
Yeah.
And getting inside.
And Felice Jacker, you know, like, and kudos to her, like a decade ago, I think she was doing this. It seems like ages she's been doing it. And lately I've been listening to some more research that's out there. And there's this guy in Edinburgh University, and I'm sorry, I don't remember his name and I could look it up, but it doesn't matter at this point. But what he had bipolar. And he was a scientist, and I think in psychiatry, and he had heard about the ketogenic diet and mental health issues. So he decided to put himself on it, which he did. And, you know, after 20 years of being diagnosed with bipolar, he was getting results where he realized he wasn't having that manic ups and downs. So that was one. And now he's done a study on it out of the University of Edinburgh. Like I said, I don't remember his name. And then I was just listening to the diary of a CEO, and he's with this woman, and I don't remember her name either. And I know where to look for them, but I just never remember their names. And she's talking about the same thing with mental health issues and the ketogenic diet, which is basically a real food diet, as long as you don't do those keto bars and those keto powders and those ketos everything, but just reducing the sugar content and carbohydrates that they're eating, because then it changes the metabolism of the brain. And this is what excites me. You see Felicia coming in there, and then now it seems to be like exploding, and that's what I think is really good. But you mentioned something, getting sick people well, and what popped into my head was a hospital. So we go into hospital, we're under blue lights, you're not allowed outside, it's air conditioned, they wake you every 4 hours to do whatever it is that they need to do for you. They feed you custard without eggs, jelly that's made with artificial sweetener and colours, potatoes that are powdered, eggs that are powdered, and toast that you would not even insulate your house with. So please explain to me this pathetic place where we're meant to get well. That is, to me, it's not a place to get well. We used to take the beds outside to give sunshine. Can you explain to me this disconnect there seems to be in a hospital?
I think it comes down to money. I honestly do. I don't think. Well, I mean, I've had to endure hospital food myself when I worked in them. That's like when I've been a patient. It's like, oh, really? I think, you know, the mindset hasn't shifted to the understanding that if you really want to get people better more quickly, not only do they need a window looking out onto a beautiful green space, because that's been shown to make a big difference, actually serving proper nutritious food is vital as well. But now, you know, the meals are all tend to be outsourced. They're produced in great number elsewhere, off-site, and then they're sort of trucked in and you get somebody coming around and it's sort of, duk, 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 here's your meal. And of course, if you've got dietary intolerances or you're diabetic, you might get a special meal, but it's basically going to be exactly the type of foods that you have described. They are not healthy, nutritious food, which unfortunately hospitals see that perhaps it's outside their budgetary constraints. I don't know. I wish it could be different. I think there's so much room for improvement, and it's not just hospitals, aged care facilities also, where they serve up pureed mush because they think that's all that old people can eat. I think, don't get me started on
I know. It's sad.
It is very sad because we have the knowledge, but it's getting it implemented, which is the biggest challenge of all. And every so often you see people sort of, especially celebrities, like celebrity chefs like Maggie Beer, say, oh, we've got to do better than this. And so they go off and they produce fantastic meals. And then you think, well, yes, every aged care facility should have this, or every hospital should have this. But at the moment, it's not seen as a possibility or a reality because everybody's list of obstacles is so high, they won't contemplate, well, what could we be doing differently? Yes, okay, cost is going to come into this, but what cost, like you said before, what cost is it to delay somebody's recovery or impair it, actually, if you're given really poor food? It doesn't make sense. Doesn't make sense. But then the lack of attention to prevention in health doesn't make sense either. And I often get on my hobby horse and talk about the fact that, only 1% to 3% of the total health budget is spent on prevention. I mean, why? The government is so fixated on outcomes. They want to be seen as putting money into hospitals and doing this and marvelous stuff because that gets them votes. They're not interested. Many of them, that's a too global a statement, but many of them know that, their tenure is short. They've got to get re-elected in a very short period of time. And we're looking at long-term changes that need to be put in place. And prevention, unfortunately, doesn't stick around in people's minds for too long because they go, yeah, we do need more prevention. Yes, it's important. But then nothing happens. So with lifestyle medicine, we are pushing and pushing and pushing to try and get, and we've taken it onto ourselves. We say, well, the government isn't going to change anything anytime soon. So we have to put it in place ourselves with the interactions we have with patients. And I think there's also a demand from patients themselves. If you or I go in to see a doctor because we're unwell, if somebody just is interested in my biochemistry or my latest lipid results, they're not looking at me as a whole person. They're not looking and saying, well, what's going on in your life at the moment? Tell me what's contributing to this. What else could be improved? Are you eating well? Are you drinking too much? Are you all these things which only take a few seconds to ask, but it might start that conversation. And that's what I think we've got to get better at is having the conversations around it rather than thinking, oh, it's too hard. People aren't interested. I think people are interested. And I think especially baby boomers who are gliding into, the last phase of their life, they want to stay healthy and functional. They want to know, what is the best thing for me to be doing at this stage of my life? And we need to be addressing every stage of our lives in exactly the same. What do we do to stay well? What can we do differently to enhance our chance of not getting a chronic disease?
Yeah. And you look at Medicare in Australia, which is our social medicine for anybody listening that aren't in Australia. We have free medicine, basically. You can go to a doctor as many times as you want and the government will pay, and they will pay for certain procedures and certain things. So I look at it like this. I go, so it's free medicine if you're sick. But if you don't go and you never spend any money with that doctor because you have been proactive in your health by doing the things that you've been talking about, I don't get a tax rebate on my Medicare. I don't get any money back. It's almost like they're giving bonuses for people who are sick, but for people who stay well, they give you no money, not a cent. And I go, how is that? And if you're saying money is the thing, money is the thing for humans as well, not just organizations and governments. It's also for us. So if I benefit from being healthy as opposed to benefit from being sick, which way am I going to go? If you have to pay because you're sick, and then somebody said to me, but that's not fair, Cyndi. That's, that's social medicine and that's the way. But I'm like going, but hang on, somebody who eats and drinks badly and is not doing the right thing and not getting out and sits in front of the television, yet I make the effort every single morning to get outside, like you've been talking about. How do you feel about that statement? Or am I being absolutely ridiculous thinking that we should be giving money back to people who do not use medicine because they look after themselves? How do you govern that?
It's a very interesting point, and I think it is starting to be looked at. It's interesting that the health insurers that we have in Australia are now looking at how they can reward their supporters, the people that are taking out their health insurance, if they can demonstrate that they've given up smoking or they're engaged in some other sort of preventative health thing. Because it's in their interest, obviously. If they're a health insurer, they don't want to have to pay out money. So that's one thing that is already happening. The other thing is that many health practitioners, and I'm not talking just about doctors here, are setting up integrative health centres or hubs. There's a very large one, which has won lots of accolades and awards in New South Wales when it's on the hospital campus. Don't ask me which hospital campus, but they've set it up. It's the sad thing or the bad thing is that you have to pay money to use its services. So it's discriminatory in that sense. But if you are keen to know what your state of health is really and what you need to do to stay healthy, you can go to this clinic. You can be seen and assessed by a GP, a cardiologist, a dermatologist, a psychologist. You can see all these people in under one roof to come out with an individualized idea of who you are as a healthy being and what you can do to change it to be even better or stay better. And I see this as the start of a movement towards greater prevention. But this needs to be addressed at a community level. We need hubs in every community where people can come in for preventative health checks and not get penalised, because it does feel like we're being penalised because we don't get no kudos for taking care of ourselves and lessening the burden on the health system. I think, there's room for improvement significantly, but I think we are heading slowly in the right direction. But I think if we can get in at the grassroots community level, this is where we can bring about real positive change because it benefits everybody. And I think, as humans, most of us actually want good things for everybody, not just for ourselves.
And I think what's exciting is the amount of GPs that are thinking like you. So when I started out in my career 44 years ago, and I was very controversial in what I thought about food and nutrition, no one, I was writing a letter, I was writing in the local paper, I was doing a weekly nutrition column, and I would get letters to the editors from doctors just saying I had no idea what I was talking about because I was saying we should not be eating margarine, we should be eating butter, we should, and that was in the low fat era, where butter was like crossed off everybody's list and everyone was eating margarine. So, but now the GPs that are coming out, and you're coming out of the woodwork. Like I go to a conference and it's all GPs thinking like you, or specialists, or I follow a gastroenterologist who's become a really close friend of mine, and even he is thinking so differently. So
yes.
I'm seeing so much change in specialists, in you guys. And what I've found, like, and that's why I asked you in the beginning, what was the impetus that made you change? More often than not, the impetus is the doctor gets sick.
That is very true. And
but that wasn't you. You were very.
That wasn't necessarily me, but it's partly me, I guess. I fell sick as a result of working in a system that didn't support my health and well-being. And that's not good either.
No.
So I think, the penny has dropped in many, many people's minds that there is so much more we can do better at. And I think what's really encouraging, especially in areas such as lifestyle, where it incorporates everybody in the health sphere. We don't profess. I mean, it used to be terribly autocratic. The doctor knows best. Well, we know the doctor doesn't know the best all the time. We need input from our other colleagues who have other specialist knowledge. And that's why, these integrated practices where you're working alongside maybe a naturopath or a nutritionist. If you got somebody with you and you think, I'm not quite sure about this, you could go and ask your colleague and have a conversation. And that means you learn something and the patient thinks it's wonderful because they're thinking, because I know that when I was in practice, I tried to incorporate a bit more of a holistic approach, and some patients loved it and some people said, no, just give me the pill, Jenny. But I was curious to understand more about why somebody would come to see me as a GP, but then go down the road to see their chiropractor or their nutritionist or their naturopath. And there was no interaction or conversation between anybody else. And I thought, this is nonsensical. So I think there's a big change happening there. We are getting much better at talking with each other.
Yeah. So when a client does want to change, and you talked about health coaching, and I'm sure you as a GP does not have time to do that. So do you have a health coach that works in your clinic to help coach these people through changes in their life?
The short answer for myself is no. But some practices do. And what we're seeing is that GPs who are interested, or practitioners who are interested, undertake coaching training programs themselves so that they can undertake this within their own practices. And this is often combined with group meetings. So instead of an individual coming in for help with their blood pressure or their type 2 diabetes or whatever, they will come to a group meeting. There might be 6 or 8 people in the room, along with maybe the GP and an allied health professional with them, because it's hard to manage it just on your own, where everybody has input to the conversation. They might be talking about a particular aspect. Each person has time with the practitioner themselves. But in the Indigenous culture, they've been yarning for years. You sit around and you have a good yarn and you solve the problems of the world. And I think hearing what other people are going through, which might be similar to yourself and what they've done, and you can learn from each other. And I think this is the big shift. We don't learn just from the medical professional or the allied health professional. We learn from each other. And we've often got the answer. So health coaching is really saying, well, yes, I'm going to work with you, but I'm here as your guide rather than telling you what to do.
Yeah.
It's a slight nuance and a shift. And we know it works. We know it works. We've got the research papers coming out saying that in, where they've done these types of programs, it helps people because it's empowering. And when you feel that you have the power within yourself to make a change that's good for you, how good does that feel?
Exactly. Going back to your book,
Yes.
Financial Advantage, I just want to tell you what I do every morning.
Yes.
To get out into the sun. So I've been doing this probably 15 years.
Yes.
So I get on my bike, I do a try. I want you to know I do a try. It's not an athlon, it's just a try. So I get on my I get on my bike and I ride 6 kilometers to my swimming beach. Like, I live near a beach, but it's too dangerous. So just like the Frio beach, like you're in Perth, so just like that Frio beach that everyone swims along, it's safe. So I ride to my safe beach. I then do either a 3 kilometer walk or a 3 kilometer run, depending on how I'm feeling. And then I swim with a group of people called the Mooloolaba Beach Bums. And we swim,
beautiful.
we swim 600 meters, depending on who I'm swimming with, because my swimmer at the moment is an 84-year-old. So he only wants to do 600 meters. If I swim with a little bit younger, like my age, in my 60s, we'll do the kilometer, sometimes 1.5 kilometers. It just depends on the day and who I'm swimming with. Then I get on my bike and I ride home. And I remember I was speaking, and I remember talking about this at a talk, and it was all about circadian health. And a doctor came up after and said, that is the best way that I know to see the sunrise, get your movement in, because we're in bare feet, ground on the sand, and start your day right. So I would assume that I'm getting ticks for you from the natural advantage.
Definitely. Tick, 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 tick.
Thank you.
Star.
I'm addicted. It's actually, if I don't do it, I feel terrible for the rest of the day. It's like this, I have to do it. It's like it's become an addiction after 15 years. So,
Yeah.
And
you notice the difference, I'm sure, on the days that you don't do it. Because when we get that natural light into our eyes, we do get that dopamine release. And the dopamine, of course, is the reward hormone. So we're feeling good because you're doing all the movement as well as being outside. So we get this sort of natural high. And of course, the serotonin gives us that lift as well. So, yeah.
But you know what blows me away? There's like 300,000 people on the coast. And let's just say there's 11,000 in just my little community, not even where I come from to do the 6K. Let's just say at Mooloolaba. And on the beach, there might be, depending on the winter or summer, there might be a couple of hundred to a couple of thousand. And it's a big beach. And I think, where are the rest of them? Why are the rest of it? They live on Mooloolaba Beach. Why are you not all coming down, watch the sunrise, which we see? We see the sunrise over the eastern, ocean. And I do. And I find it fascinating that everybody just doesn't get out and do that. Now, having said that, where do we get the natural advantage? Is it in all bookstores?
Depending on what bookstore you have available to you. It's in all the big bookstores like Dimmock's. Available online through Booktopia and Amazon, and it's available as Kindle and paperback as well. And it's also available on my website.
Now, what's your website?
It's simply my name. So it's Dr. Jenny Brockis. So it's Dr. Jenny with a Y, BROCKIS.com. And if you buy one through my website, of course, you get it signed.
Good. That sounds wonderful. That sounds absolutely wonderful. Is there anything that we haven't talked about, and I haven't asked you the right question, that is burning inside you that you would like to tell our audience? And our audience are very much health seekers. They're very much looking for the way that they can live their lives to the best, or if they're new, then they're just starting out. So what would you like to say?
I think the biggest message is, we know time in nature is good for us, but it's time connecting with nature that matters more. And the difference here is not just saying, oh yeah, there's a nice green space out there. It's about really spending the time to connect. And we, as we talked about before, what we see, hear, smell, taste, and touch. And to deepen that connection with nature, because when we do that, we strengthen our sense of connection, not only with our planet, but with ourselves. And I think that is really important. So, and I think the one thing that really saddens me is that we disregard nature so easily. You see new suburbs going up and they've just clear felled everything. It's just a sand pit. What did you see? not a skerrick of anything green. And it's going to take years before we get the green canopy growing up and all the vegetation taking place. And yet at a time of climate change where the world is getting hotter and the weather is getting more extreme, we can utilize the power of nature to help us to mitigate some of those risks. I know when we Google our house, where we live in Perth, you can pick us out from the rest because we are this green oasis. We've got a slightly wild, overgrown garden, which we love, but it's cool. And it's amazing how in the summer, going out into our backyard, you can tell the difference between that and our neighbour's house where they've got pavers and it's all open. So I think, we can utilise nature so much more. So if you have the room and you have the space and the money and the inclination, grow more green stuff.
Oh, I just love what you're doing and I love your philosophy. And if anyone's in the Perth area, reach out to Dr. Jenny if you're looking for a GP who's thinking about lifestyle and getting out in nature. And I've heard some good ones happening out there. Like by the way, one of my girlfriends is a chiropractor and in Perth, in Freo, and she swims every morning on that Freo beach. She takes me. Yeah, she's very much into the same things as you are. Perhaps you guys should connect.
Good. Yes, that sounds great.
Yeah, awesome. Yeah. I'll let her know to listen to this, and maybe she'll connect out with you. Yeah. And by the way, she has about 150 acres, about an hour south of Freo, and I forage on her place. It is. She's got a great garden. I don't even have to go into the wilds. I just go into her garden and I get everything out of it. Yeah. So she gets her green space every weekend there. Thank you, Dr. Jenny. I loved connecting with you and hearing your philosophy, and very much aligns with the way I think. And as my father says, I like that man. He thinks like I do. So I always repeat that because we find that we attract the right person to interview, and we seem to all be on the same page, and I'm seeing more and more. So thank you for Kim and myself, and I'm sorry Kim wasn't here because she would have had different questions, but I think I got the best out of you, so thank you.
Thank you so much. It's been wonderful to be with you today. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
This has been a production of TheWellnessCouch.com. Check us out on Facebook and join in the conversation on Facebook.com/The Wellness Couch. Subscribe to each show on iTunes and check us out on Twitter. The Wellness Couch, streaming wellness into your lives.
Whilst the Wellness Couch presenter endeavor to provide accurate and helpful information to their listeners, these podcasts cannot take into account individual circumstances and are not intended to be a substitute for health and medical advice from a qualified health professional. You should always seek the advice of a qualified health professional before acting on any of the information provided by any of the Wellness Couch podcasts.